Dear Rabbi Gruen, thank you so much. I've been listening to Shurim lately, and I'm really enjoying them. I've mentioned to my wife a couple of times. I've mentioned to my wife a couple of times things that she maybe can work on that would really mean a lot to me. Certain things in the bedroom, nothing out of the ordinary. Let's say, for example, sending a text once in a while, initiating instead of me always sending it, or regarding a cleaner house. I know it's a small apartment, but she even took a course on cleaning and throwing things out. I am a neat freak, so I always tell her that it doesn't have to be clean to my standards, but the basics should be done. In both topics, I fell on deaf ears. Now I decided myself I'm going to try very hard to control myself and not say anything, being that every time I do, she just gets insulted and cries. Am I doing the right thing, or should I keep on bringing it up? And is it because she doesn't care about my feelings that she doesn't try to work on it, or is it because she can't, because it's too hard for her? Okay. So let's start with this, and this is a topic that we discussed pretty much, especially recently, where people are trying to get their spouse to do things a certain way. And I think that almost everyone can relate to this on some level, which is maybe comforting. I think everybody, if they had that magic button, I spoke about this often, about the magic buttons. If you'd have a magic button, that switchboard that you could turn the dials on your spouse and your children, I think most people would take advantage of it. A little more like that, a little more like this. Now, why would you need magic buttons? Why can't you just ask someone to do something? Well, it seems that a lot of people feel that I tried and it doesn't go. I can't get someone to do something that's important to me. And that's why people would take advantage of these magic buttons. But it just goes to show that I think everybody could relate to this idea of things that are important to me. I've been mentioning them, they're not happening. Why is it like that, etc. Now, before I answer the questioner, I'll just give a note to the wife in this case, and of course to the husbands in other cases. Why not take your husband seriously? Now, I understand it might be difficult, but like we started off with, saying I can't instead of saying I don't want to, it's something to think about. Could you? Can't you? I think from the basics in the relationship, the basics of getting along with people that you care about and love and want to be close with and want to please, is taking them seriously. Now, it doesn't mean you have to bend yourself into a pretzel and do everything the way someone else wants you to do and nothing the way you want to do, but just taking someone seriously, someone who's making a request of you, and taking something that's important to them seriously and into consideration is literally from the basics of a relationship. It's easy to say, well, you should love me even if I don't do that, or why are you asking me to do things that are hard for me, don't you care about me? There's a lot of ways to manipulate these things, but I think from the basics in every relationship is to see where you could try your best to please someone who's asking nicely for you to take them into consideration. So I'm just mentioning that before I even start addressing the questioner. Now, I think one of the first things that's important, which is actually almost the last thing that you mentioned, is it because she doesn't care about my feelings that she doesn't try to work on it? Or because it's too hard for her? This is one of the biggest problems, I would say, when it comes to relationships. When people see something technical, something just that has to be done, or something that's bothersome, or whatever it is, and it becomes personal. When we start personalizing every little thing in a relationship, or even big things in a relationship, things that are important to you, but they become personal. It becomes about you and me, and how you feel about me, and how you care about me, and how I should care about you, and why don't me. So much of this stuff is not really as much about me and you as it sounds. A lot of it just has to do with technical difficulty, a personal choice that someone else is making. It's not about the relationship, and it's very important. So easy to overgeneralize the idea of if you would love me, if you would care for me. Somebody just shared with me an essay written by a big professional who was commenting on how people often use this in a manipulative way. If you'd only care about me, you would do this. If you would love me enough, you would do that. Now, very often it's unintentional. The person saying this doesn't even realize how manipulative it is and how much they're just trying to get someone to do something, and the way to get them to do it is by making them feel guilty. Sometimes people actually feel that way. In other words, it's not always coming from a bad place of I know which phrase to use that's going to get you to do something and make you feel bad. I'm not looking to make you feel bad. This is how I'm thinking now. I'm thinking and feeling that if you'd care about me enough, you would do it. So I'm telling it to you. I'm sharing my feelings. Should that be open? And even when unintentional, it's such a wrong statement. It's such a wrong statement when people either think or assume or project on someone else that if the relationship would be better and you'd care about me more and you'd be more you'd have more feeling for me and it would mean something to you that I'd be happy, so automatically you would do everything the way I want. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes people are just also taking themselves seriously, which means they love you very much, but they love themselves too. So there's only so much that they can self-obliterate their own essence just because they have feelings for you. And other times, as much as somebody loves you and wants to do it for you, it's very hard for them. So it's very important to just remember these things instead of making it personal. And sometimes it even looks personal, which means I've heard many people talk about things that actually look like, for someone else they would do it and for me they won't. Or it's when they're in a bad mood and when they're not feeling good about me, or when I said something they don't like, that's when they won't do it. Sometimes you could actually come up with a lot of good proofs and a lot of good reasonings and ways to rationalize your assumptions and your conclusions that it's all because of the relationship and all because of how someone feels. And very often, it's more about the other person than about you. Now, it's true that if somebody would be so happy and feel so loving and feel so taken care of, then maybe they would bend over backwards for you. But it's very important to remember that when somebody's resisting something, a lot of it has to do with them and not so much about you. And there's a general idea that whenever there's differences in the relationship, whenever there's obstacles in the relationship, it's not always about you. It's not always about how someone feels about you. And it's just recently I was talking to two Ingrid, Mamish within 2 days. And they both had a similar story about, which is something that we spoke about recently, levels of frumkeit, let's call it. Okay, this is a Yiddish topic. You won't hear about this in marriage counseling in the secular world, right? Frumkeit issues. Now to us, Yidden, Yiddishkeit and frumkeit, or passion about Yiddishkeit or Ehrlichkeit, however you want to call it, takes up a major place in our life. It does, and it should, right? And we're here in this world for a reason. And being committed to Avodas Hashem and Roots in Hashem, this is something that this is part of who we are, right? So when this becomes a big component in a person's life and a person's relationships, it's more than normal. So what happens is you have two people getting married, and however you want to assess these things or measure levels of frumkeit or levels of Yiddishkeit or whatever you want to call it, it's almost inevitable that in very many couples you'll see differences. Now some are very small differences, just a little frummer, a little more passionate about certain things, cares a little more about certain things, a little more frumkeit in this area, a little more machmir in that area, a little more whatever it is. And some couples you'll see that it's a little bigger, those differences. This is normal. You could try to have two families that are mamish the same, be mishalech, and the kids are just different, or sometimes you have it, two families that are very different, the kids are actually the same, but other differences. So this is normal. Now what happens is, very often, people feel like, if I'm not firm enough for my spouse, then he's probably looking down at me. If I'm not firm enough for my wife, I'm not firm enough for my husband, so this is getting in the way. It's getting in the way, because frumkeit, like we said, frumkeit and ehrlichkeit and Yiddishkeit is important to both of us, or at least maybe to you more than to me even. And the fact that I know that you're probably disappointed that I'm not as frum as you, I don't care enough about whatever minig, masoira, chumra, or whatever halacha may be, hashkafa, so you're probably looking down at me. And this is something that makes people feel very inferior, very uncomfortable. Now, I don't mean to trivialize the ideas of frumkeit and Yiddishkeit or anything. This is all, like I said, this is what we're here for. We're here to serve Hashem. Very often, a person's passion in Yiddishkeit, let's call it. Somebody's passionate, let's say, about kashrus or about tznius or about whatever. Everyone in their own area, where they get passionate and have that feeling for it. Who is that coming from? Is it coming from strictly from Yiras Shamayim, which means really they weren't so passionate about it, but because they learned enough, they were mo'ir to themselves and they heard enough about it, and they're pushing themselves to do something that's really hard for them. They're really not, they don't have the feeling for it at all, but they heard enough about it to know that it's the right thing to do, and day in, day out, they push themselves to be very firm in this area because they know it's the right thing to do, even though they don't have a feeling for it. How often do you see that? Very, very infrequent. Most people who are passionate about something, it's because they have a feeling for it. They like it. They like it. I don't mean to say that it's not good anymore, it's not special anymore. You walk into a shul and you see certain people davening very early, or you walk into a yeshiva, you see certain bachrim davening very early. The ones that are shuckling more and davening more, are they working on themselves to daven with kavanah, or they appreciate it, they have a feeling for it? I don't want to use the words they enjoy it, but they probably do. And the ones that are walking the whole way and coming in late and leaving early and spending time in the bathroom in the middle of davening and just climbing the walls, those are the ones that just don't enjoy it. So the ones that are davening more passionately aren't necessarily the ones that are working on themselves more, and the other boys should be, comparing themselves and coming along. Everyone has their feelings. So, like I said, I don't want to trivialize it and play it down and make it sound like, oh, it's just all about feelings and preferences and style. But a lot of times that's what it is. Just so you would understand that if I like hiking, or I like ice cream, and you like music, so we're passionate about different things, we enjoy different things, right? most often when it comes to those things, people don't take it as personal. Why? Because you like music and I like ice cream. So I'll tolerate your music, you'll tolerate my ice cream. But there's nothing personal about it. People have different ways of enjoying themselves, different pleasures. When it comes to something a little more close to Yiddishkeit, often we do see things, more personal. Like, oh, you're better than me, I'm worse than you look down at me, I feel judged by you. Why is it getting so personal? A lot of it, very, very much of this, is again, it's a personal way of expressing one's self. To me, Yiddishkeit is more about believing in Hashem and trusting Hashem and thanking Hashem and being nice to all Hashem's people. And to you, it's more about dressing a certain way and acting a certain way, which is all beautiful. But I think it's important both for somebody who does feel frummer, not to feel holier than thou, because, okay, this is how I feel, and I thank Hashem that I feel this way, and it works for me, and I like it, and I feel connected to Hashem by this. I feel I'm serving Hashem properly by this, but not necessarily I'm more than someone else. And the other way around as well. You don't necessarily have to feel inferior just because someone else has a different preference or a different style of the way they express their devotion to Hashem. Anyway, I just got a little off topic. My point is just that, very often when it comes to different things in relationships, we take it personal right away. It right away becomes me and you. You must not be happy with me. You must not care about me. You must look down at me. You must not love me. Not necessarily. There are things that are hard for you. It's hard for you to clean up the house, so it's hard for you to clean up the house. If you love me more, it would be easier for you. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you don't even have time to think about how much you love me because you're just so overwhelmed by having to clean so much that you're so stressed out about it. It's important to know how to depersonalize things and not see them as indications, of where my relationship is holding and what the other person's thinking and what kind of person they are and all that. Now, a lot of this is very hard when you're subjective. Often when I sit with people, and especially when I'm doing some EFT, emotional freedom technique, trying to help people overcome difficult feelings, different mindsets, negative thoughts, negative emotions. So you try to give an example that's a little close to home, but not enough close, that they should be able to see things in a more logical way, less emotional. So I was talking to somebody who was struggling with a relationship with his parents. I said, okay, let's put this on the side. These are all your feelings about how you feel about your parents. What would you do if we were talking to a boy who was feeling bad about the way his Rebbe or his Magachir was treating him? Would you understand that maybe it's good to tell him that maybe he's seeing it wrong, and maybe his Rebbe didn't mamish mean it, and maybe his Rebbe has more in his mind than just to eat him up and make his life miserable, and maybe he's just interpreting it that way? Now I understand you wouldn't want to say that to a boy who's feeling hurt, but would it make sense to you that maybe he's misreading the situation? And he was following along with me, this person I was talking to. He said, of course, yeah, it would make sense. He probably just sees it that way, and I would tell him that maybe as years go on, you'll see it differently, etc. I said, would it make sense that in your situation there's some similarity? Would you be able to relate to it? Or would it make sense that somebody else would tell you that in your situation as well, maybe you are just too subjective that you don't realize? And the jump that he gave of, no, it can't be. It can't be. I'm 100% certain that I'm reading this properly, and I know what's really going on, and I see how much my parents are here to make me miserable, and all they want to do, because they hate me, they want to just ruin my life. This is normal, by the way. I don't mean to say that this was... That's how we are. We can sometimes know things and hear them, and then when it comes to applying it and saying, does it really make sense that my wife really does care about me and she's struggling with this, or that my husband really wants to make me happy, he's just staying out late at night for other reasons? But yeah, this is what it is. It's important to remember that this is actually most often the reality. Most often the reality. And it's hard to internalize when we're feeling hurt by what's going on. Now, so that was just to understand, you asked me if it's because your wife doesn't care about you. I think just on getting a little more practical to decide if and when you should pursue these kind of requests, right? Sounds like you have pretty normal requests. You want your wife to do something, take initiative of something. It doesn't have to be to your standards. Sounds like you're being relatively reasonable. Something's important to you. Should you not say it? I mean, in general, it's important to be assertive and expressive and tell someone who you care about, someone who cares about you, someone who you want to live with, somebody who you're in a close relationship with. You want to be open with them. If you're not going to tell someone what you like or what's meaningful to you, then you probably just be depriving yourself of things that can make you happy and make your life better. And I think that would be silly. It would be silly. And there are people like that. There are people that just don't know how to say what they want, even if the other person would be happy to accommodate. I've seen this many times. People, whether it's a low self-esteem or for whatever reason, they feel that, oh, it's okay. What does that mean it's okay? I mean, you're not really okay, right? You're not happy with what's going on. How do I know that? Because you told it to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't know what you want. And you're just not saying what you want. Why not? I think that would be silly. Now, I think I mentioned this recently. It's always good to figure out when you want something from someone else and they're not doing it. Now, first of all, did you say it? In this case, it sounds like you did. But some people don't realize how much they mamish didn't say what they want yet. Did you express yourself yet? Did you say it's important to you? You're hoping someone will guess it? You didn't marry a mind reader. Yeah, but the last time I did, I tried. The other one, this one, he knows, she knows. If you didn't say it, I think you should say it. That's rule number one. If you said it but you didn't say it right, then I think you should try again. If you said something but you said it the wrong way, it came across negative, or it came across condescending, or it came across sarcastic, or it came across apologetic, or it came across unclear, then yeah, just figure out how to say something right and do it again. You know, to just jump to a conclusion that I said enough of a hint that if you really cared about me, you would do it, I think that's ridiculous. Both because the person might not have gotten your message, and like we said, it might be hard for someone. So why go roundabout and hope that they just grab the opportunity to make you happy when it's really hard for them. Interestingly, for many people, just being clear about what's important to you and knowing how to say it at the right time, etc. That's often what works best. For some people, it's important, and I think this is where people have to assess their own situation and figure from experience. Sometimes it's what works with some people is to say, please do this. I had this recently too. I was talking to someone recently, and he's telling me about all the different attempts he made to get his wife to take him seriously. And some of them were relatively good. They were like, he was trying to understand her and validate the difficulty and be clear about what would be meaningful to him and make sure that she understood that she doesn't really have to, but what works for most people. And it wasn't working. I said, did you ever try asking her nicely, could you please do this today? I would appreciate if this happens by 6 o'clock. Not in a controlling way, not in a demanding way, but just being clear that, yes, please do it. And sometimes with children, it's the same thing. There are the children who, when you say please do it, they have that resistance of, why should I, why only me, I don't want to. And there are the children who, when you say please do it, they do it. And when you do anything else, they just either take advantage or don't chap or don't want to. So I'm mentioning it because sometimes saying that something will mean a lot to me, for some people, doesn't work as good as, could you please do this? And they'll do it. And they'll feel good because you told them exactly what to do. So it's all about different styles and different things like that. Now, if you did it already, you already asked someone nicely, you asked someone the right way, you have no reason to assume that you didn't express your request in a way that maybe wasn't right, so you did it right and it's not working. That's where it's time to think. It's always time to think. Should you give up on it? Should you wait a little time? Should you give it time? Should you come up with something else? Should you offer a suggestion? Or sometimes just drop it. Sometimes just drop it. There are things that are hard for people to do, and sometimes there are some things that are just best left unaddressed. People don't like to hear that, but there's only so much you can get people to do in general. Everyone has a limit. The people that can bend themselves backwards 90%, they also can go 100%, so that's it. You just have to sometimes be more considerate of what you're dealing with and understand it well. There are things that over time get better, I must say, because I've seen people jump to these conclusions 5 months after they got married, or even 2 years after they got married. It's okay, some things take time. But there are things that is best to drop. I remember somebody once talking about challenges with children, and he said, you have to pick your battles. I remember somebody piping up and said, why are you battling your kids? It doesn't sound right, pick your battles. I don't like the words pick your battles. When you think about it, the idea is that you just have to know what to pick on. There are things that you will be able to achieve and get someone else to do, and there are things that you won't get someone else to do, and it's important to know how much to keep on trying to get someone to do something when it's not working. That's called picking your battles. Another thing that's very important in all these examples, which I pick up on very quickly, I'm very in tune to this, is who's trying to get who to do what? Remember this question. Who's trying to get who to do what? It seems, from what you're writing here, from both examples that you're writing, you're trying to get her to do something. Just remember that. If a husband is trying to get his wife to do something, at some point, if she's not doing it, it's time to remember, okay, so I wanted her to do something and she doesn't want to. As opposed to, I have to now do something because she doesn't want, right? That's a different story. This is the old boundary discussion of mine, yours, and ours. As much as I want you to do something, it's important for me to remember, what's this request that I'm making of you? It's a request for the family, it's a request for me to be able to do something, or it's a request for you to do something. So if I'm asking you to do something and it's hard for you, at some point, I'm allowed to be rational and decide that I might not be able to get you to do something I want. It's either you doing things the way I want or you doing things the way you want. And if I'm intelligent enough or creative enough or successful at getting you to want to do things the way I want, that's wonderful. Whether it's for my compliments or for my, for whatever other reason. But if I can't, it's okay. It's important to remember that you can't always get someone else to do something the way you want. I do think, practically speaking, that you should focus on yourself too, which means not always because you have to settle for the fact that somebody else doesn't want to do something the way you want, doesn't mean that you now have to go along with the way they want. Now, I'm not talking about tit for tat. I'm talking about I'll get back at you. If you don't do this for me, I won't do that for you. Sometimes part of the resentment is that because you're not taking me seriously, that's what's causing me to now have to do something a different way. I'll give you an example. You write that you're a neat freak, right? Which is wonderful. A lot of people have this OCD with cleaning or whatever it is. They like when things are set up nicely. Now, if you tried getting your wife to clean up, and she won't, for whatever reason, does that mean you have to live in a messy house? Not necessarily. Either you could clean up yourself, even if she might not appreciate that you're doing that, do it in a nice way, or you might be able to get someone to come in and help clean, even if she doesn't necessarily want someone to come. You can figure out how to do that. Not always is her resistance to cleaning going to obligate you to live in a mess. So it's just important to break it down. I can't necessarily get you to clean. I understand. Please understand that this is important to me. Let's try to work along and see if something else like work for both of us maybe. So I think when people realize that even if I can't get you to do things the way I want, it doesn't necessarily dictate exactly what I have to do or how I have to tolerate or what I have to work with, I think you get less resentful than when you think that, okay, so if I can't get to do this, then this is going to be a story of our life. And this is a general thing that I see very often when it comes to the home, when it comes to the children, when it comes to finances, when it comes to different things. I can't get her to do it my way. But maybe there are things you could do your way. Again, without fighting or without making anyone feel bad. Very often, just realizing where you could do things your way might make you feel less resentful. Okay, so you got your thing done, and you feel good about it, and it didn't happen exactly the way you wanted. There's another thing over here that you write about. You decided that you're going to try very hard to control yourself and not say anything. And you want to know if it's the right thing to do or not. Like I said, sometimes it's the right thing to do. If it's not going anywhere, then yeah, just keep it to yourself. But this is something I mention often, the difference between tolerating and accepting. If you're tolerating something and you're just keeping it to yourself because you decided that for the next 40 days I'm not going to say anything, you're probably bottling up resentment, getting very angry, and at one time you're not going to have the koyach anymore, it's going to platz. And when it does, it's usually not pleasant. And it's sad when I hear this from people very often. So I held myself in for a month, for 2 months, for 2 years, for 3 years, and then when it came out, whoa, I gave it all out. Well, what could I do? How long could a person keep himself in? First of all, even when you were bottling up the resentment, it was probably noticeable, even though you didn't say it. And by the time it came out, so okay, this now clarified how you've been feeling all along. Where did it get you? Sometimes it's better to just express yourself than to bottle up like that. But that's what happens when you tolerate. When you accept and you decide, you know what, this is not working. Wife can't handle it. She either can't do it, she probably does love me and care about me, and it's still very hard for her. I accept that this will not be the way I'm going to do it. I'll either find another way to do it, or I'll accept the reality and just come to peace with it. I'll make peace with it and come to terms with the fact that this is not how it's going to work, and slowly accept that as much as I would have wanted something, and in my perfect world where I have all my magic buttons, I would make it this way, I accept it. I'm going to try to stop harping on it and thinking about it and obsessing about it and being resentful about it and work around it. And very many people are matzliach to do that in life about a lot of different things. A lot of different things. There are things that we accept because we know, okay, this was Hashem's plan. How many children I should have, or how tall I should be, or things like that, because I accept I can't do anything about it. And then there are things that are harder to accept because it looks like someone else is getting in my way. But when we understand acceptance and realize that there's only so much we could control, there's only so much other people could control, there's only so much other people could get themselves to do, and you accept it, and you're not tolerating and just keeping quiet, but you're actually dealing with it better. I think that's a better way to go. And I'll add another important point, which I think I see people overlooking. You mentioned here, I'm sure they're just examples. You mentioned here 2 things that you wish she could do for you, your wife, and she's not doing it. Okay, so like we said, there might still be ways to get her to do it, there might not be ways to get her to do it. What about everything else? Often people get stuck on the big things, let's call it the important things. Important things. It's important to me that we do this. I can't get her to do it. Okay, you know what? I accept it. I'm not going to have this life that I wanted. I'm not going to enjoy myself. But what about maybe you could do something else? No, okay, that's not what I want. I want this. I understand you want this and not that. You want to go on the big vacation with your wife, but she won't come along. And you don't want to just take a walk. I'm taking a walk. I want to go on a vacation. But if you can't go on a vacation, would you rather have no vacation and no walk? Or a vacation and a walk? Or no vacation and a cookish cake? Or no vacation and no cookish cake? Very often people don't realize that if you only... There's so much you could access from somebody that they would be willing to give you. And it's a shame not to access that little bit, that little favor, that little chore, that little errand, that little, pleasant thing. It's not exactly what you wanted, but first of all, you'll be accessing more of another person, so you'll be feeling better. You'll have more in this relationship. You'll have cookish cake. Like I said, it's not what you want. You wanted her to go to work and help you with the finances. You wanted your husband to come home early and live with the kids. But you can get that little thing. Get it. It will make you feel better. A lot of that resentment comes from, what am I getting here? It's not all about being selfish and getting, but I'm not getting anything. There's so many things I'm not getting. So get more things. And you know what happens? Aside from feeling better about the fact that you're broadening your personal benefits in a relationship, which make you feel more comfortable, you're helping the other person feel good. You think your wife feels good by the fact that she can't fulfill your wishes here? She doesn't feel good about it. It's hard for her, but she doesn't feel good about it. Let her feel good that she's pleasing you. Letting her feel good. Let her feel good that you still need her. That there are things that she's providing for you. So that's number two. The first thing is that you're feeling better by getting a little more. It's a shame not to get the things you could. She'll feel better that she's providing, and I'll tell you a little secret. Very often, when somebody feels good, and they feel needed, and they feel appreciated, and they feel like, wow, you see me as a good wife, you see me as a good husband, because I'm giving you this and that, it makes them want to give even more. So very often, asking for those small things and making someone feel like they're providing for you will actually, bring much more of that. So I think it's also a very, very important point. It's a shame. Very often I talk to people and I ask them about, what they could get or what they would get or what they would want, and like, no, I just decided a long time ago, I don't need anything. Let me do my own thing. And the relationship is terrible, but at least I'm not getting disappointed every day by having my requests turned down. They don't realize that part of why the relationship is so bad is because they're asking for so little and getting so little and just not connecting and not letting someone feel good. It's a shame. It's a shame to give that self-sufficient, independent attitude. I don't need you. It just makes people feel worse. So I think this is all so important. Now, like I started off, I think so much of this is so typical. It's so typical. Some people it's more blatant and more bothersome, that important things to me are not being addressed. And some people it's the smaller things. But almost everyone has those things where we are different. What's important to me, what's not important to me isn't important to you. Things that I'm passionate about and I like are not, are very hard for you. Things that are easy. That's just how we're wired. The example that I give, and I've said this in the past, I like this example because I think it's so typical. I think most people I think can relate to it. Is the example of hosting guests. I think most couples have some difference between husband and wife in the idea of hosting. Most, not everyone. I think most could relate to the concept of if the husband would be doing everything on his own and his wife wouldn't be saying anything at all, would there be more guests in the house, more or less? And the other way around as well. If it would only be up to the wife, would there be more or less? It's just such a common difference where some people like to have a lot of guests, some people like to have them sleep over and eat over, some don't like to have any. And automatically getting married means we meet in the middle. Now people could be resentful about it. People could try to control the outcome. People could take it personally and decide that, you must yes or not love me. Or we could just acknowledge the fact that we're somewhat different. And things that are easy or a pleasure to me are very hard and not geschmack for you, and work with that. So just to recap, the first point I said was to make sure that you're depersonalizing anything that's bothersome in a relationship. It's not about me and you and caring and loving most often. You do want to decide if and what to address, whether to pick your battles or to ignore things, or to figure out if you did it right and it's time to drop it, or you didn't do it right yet and why not pursue things like that. And then on a practical level, just to know how to focus on yourself, make sure that you're not necessarily getting overtaken by someone else's resistance to do something in a nice way, not chas v'sholom in a way that's making a bigger problem, and learning how to accept versus tolerate, and access more in a relationship than you've been accessing, just so you both feel better about it. I think that will be so helpful. So like we started off with, the story of Rabbi Shimon Gruen. So many things in life you just don't want to. And when it comes to yourself is one thing, when it comes to someone else, and you feel like they could, so make them want to, and they'll be able to. And the Mitzvah Hashem, when we're able to infuse in other people the eager want, whether it's by saying things the right way, or making them feel a certain way, or giving a certain attitude, or a certain good feeling, whether it's appreciation or compliments, whatever it may be, hopefully that will help us live together.